Oh, welcome to the Starting 11 prediction show. Liverpool, Crystal Palace at Anfield. Jurgen Klopp, Roy Hodgson, the greatest modern day Liverpool manager against the worst modern day Liverpool manager. We're here to predict Liverpool's starting 11 against Crystal Palace at the weekend at Anfield. Can't wait to get back into the Kop. It's going to be amazing. Let's start with the goalkeeper then. In goal, it's going to be one Alisson Becker, whose stats are still incredible. 22 appearances, only 10 goals conceded. Yeah, the lad's been incredible. You know, he's making 2 saves per 90 with his reflexes, short passing, his long passing's been good as well. He's really helped with the defensive side of things. You know, we're so much better because of him and because of how the defensive play is playing. We'll talk a little bit more about each individual player towards the end of the video when we've got the team on the board, and then we'll get into your comments. But at right back, I think that it is going to be one James Milner. So yeah, he's comfortable playing in the full-back position. We've obviously seen him play a season over at left-back and a few games here and there at left-back and maybe 1 or 2 at right-back. But this lad can do things. You know, this lad is an experienced fella. Now, people will be losing their head about Nathaniel Clyne going out on loan, and maybe you're right on that type of stuff. But I'll tell you what, let's talk about how he'll play when we get a little bit further on. At centre-back, I think that Joel Matip is going to be coming back in alongside Virgil van Dijk. Spoilers. He has been a little bit missed, to be honest with you. A couple of really good performances when he went out, before he went out on his injury. You know, his passing's good. He likes to feed the midfielders. He likes to try and hit the likes of Roberto Firmino with the ball to feet and stuff. And, you know, I've always thought he's a little bit too passive in the challenge and waits for things to happen a little bit too much. He's maybe not as aggressive as a Dejan Lovren, but he's an absolutely sound backup centre-back. I think Joe Gomez is probably the number 1 centre-half alongside Virgil van Dijk. Joe Gomez not coming back in this week. Probably next week he might join the squad. So we'll move along. And then it's going to be Virgil van Dijk. I mean, the lad has played every single Premier League game. He's completing 91% of his passes. He's winning 3.31 defensive duels. He's winning 63% of his aerial duels. He's intercepting the ball over 6 times per game on average. The lad's incredible. Let's move on to the left back, another fella who has been absolutely stupendous this season. That is Andy Robertson. We had a question on the podcast yesterday. I don't know whether it was on the podcast or the bonus Q&A for the website about who's your favourite all-time Liverpool cult hero, and I think he's probably liked too much to be a cult hero, but in some regards he started life as a cult hero. This lad's incredible. 3 assists, 20 appearances. He's making just under 4 crosses per 90 and just under 4 interceptions per 90 as well. In the middle of the park, I think it's going to go 4-2-3-1, and I think it's going to be Fabinho move back from that centre-back place into the centre midfield place. I've said at the start of the season that I think he'd be a revolutionary figure for this Liverpool side. I thought he'd have more impact on the style of play than someone like a Naby Keita, and I think I was swimming against the tide there, to be honest with you, and it looks like right now I'm kind of being proved right. He's been so good, both at centre-back, both at centre midfield, but in centre midfield, his speed of thought, his speed of pass is what sets him apart. So we'll move on to his midfield partner with Gini Wijnaldum injured. I think it's going to be the captain, Jordan Henderson, who's only had 11 appearances and 8 from the substitute bench. He's completing nearly 90% of his passes. He's trying 6 long passes per 90 and completing nearly 60% of them. He's winning a lot of defensive duels, 6.68, and intercepting the ball nearly 5 times per game as well. So ahead of them on the right-hand side, I think it's going to be the little man, Big Shaq, who has made himself part of this start 11, hasn't he? You know, he scored 6 goals in his 17 total appearances, 10 from the start, 7 from the substitute bench. He's completing 50 passes per 90. He's completing 2/3 of his dribbles, and he's having 2.26 shots per 90 as well. In the centre, in that number 10 position, I think it's going to be Roberto Firmino again, who's starting to excel in that role. When Liverpool's starting to play with purpose, it's him that the ball's going through. You know, he's bringing the likes of Sadio Mane and Mo Salah and Shaqiri into play, and it's that, again, that quick passing, that quick little flicks around corners, looking for those 1-2s that Roberto Firmino's starting to really perform well, doing all that type of stuff. Yeah, so we'll move on then, over on the left-hand side, a player that frustrates at times, but a player that ultimately I believe is world-class. I think Sadio Mane, you know, he scored 8 goals in 19 appearances, 19 starts and 1 substitute appearance. And I think in total, he's played 100 games for Liverpool now, and he scored 42 goals from that left-hand side. So although he does frustrate at times, he's very close to being a 1-in-2 left winger, which I think you take Messi and Ronaldo out of it. Like Daniel Sturridge was lauded early on in his career for being a 1-in-2 striker. and this lad's doing it nearly from the left-hand side as well. You know, he's completing 65% of his dribbles and making 5.1 dribbles per 90. He's having over 2 shots per 90 as well. And then up top, the man that leads the line, the man that's growing into this number 9 role, the man that is undoubtedly world-class and probably the best player in the Premier League, it's Mo Salah. He scored 14 goals in his 22 total appearances, 21 of them from the start. He's got 6 assists as well. He's joint top scorer in the Premier League right now. And I thought he struggled a little bit with that number 9 position when he first went there, and Firmino to the 10. I thought their understanding wasn't quite as good as when they were playing in that 4-3-3 formation. Mo Salah now is starting to play with his back to goal. He's starting to be strong. He's starting to hold players, roll players, bring in players. He's been absolutely brilliant. Let's bring the team on then, please, Tom. So as you can see, I've landed up in that 4-2-3-1. You've got James Milner in at right back. Now, I think what's really interesting about Milner at right back is you would say, listen, what about the pace of maybe Zaha will be moved over there, or a Max Meyer might be over there, or something like that. And is James Milner fast enough to be able to deal with those players? Well, I'm not 100% sure that it is his job. I think, you know, if he's attacking down that right-hand side, I think Fabinho slots in, and I think he's ultimately quick enough and a good enough tackler of the ball. I think Joel Matip will be tasked with coming over and helping him out. And if they build up slowly, James Milner will be back in position, and he's a great tackler. He'll probably leave one in on the, like one of those pacey wingers early on in the game and let them know that they're in a game. Robertson's going to be key, as he always is, bombing down that left-hand side, whipping balls, and we saw first half against Brighton, he set up one for Firmino, who he probably should have finished. And then it's about these two, you know, they slot in and cover while these two bomb on. And hopefully this lad will make a big difference. And if Matip's there, and Firmino's there, and Jordan Henderson's there, I expect Liverpool to try and move the ball into feet for Firmino. When we played against Brighton, one of the things that for me was different second half to first half, and why we played much better second half to first half, was the likes of Salah and the likes of Roberto Firmino, Mane and Shaqiri started dropping deep, picking the ball up, turning on it, and then looking for that 1-2. And I can think of a couple of examples where Salah does it, plays the ball to Henderson. Henderson initially, straight away, plays the ball back into Mo Salah's feet. Salah straight into Firmino, runs off, the ball gets put wide to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent whips the ball in, and Salah's just missed the end of it. And it's when we start doing that we start to break teams down. We're a great side in transition from defence to attack, but in possession we need to rely on these two dropping deep and looking for those 1-2s to bring us forward, because sometimes it can just be a little bit slow in the centre of the park. But when these two start doing that, Liverpool start to really fire and stuff. So I'm going to get into some of the comments and stuff now. Have you got anything to get me going? Because mine hasn't carried on.
A lot of people have been saying Keita, and Joshua Olram says this game should be Keita's chance.
Yeah, maybe so. I think, you know, we've not seen Keita in a two-man midfield, so I wonder whether you're thinking maybe on that left-hand side, maybe give Sadio Mane a little bit of a rest, or maybe you're thinking of dropping him back into a 4-3-3, Fabinho with a Henderson and a Keita, something like that. Now, I think a home game's a good game to try that in again. I think we've performed much better in the 4-2-3-1 because we are able to build up slowly when they're playing with a low block and making it difficult for us to pass through. So I think probably the 4-2-3-1's the formation to go with, if you can call it that. And then where does Keita fit in? We've not really seen him in a two-man midfield yet. He's certainly not excelled in a two-man midfield. But sliding doors, isn't it? If Matip's not quite ready, then Fabinho probably drops in at centre-half, and then you've got a space in the midfield for Naby Keita. But I guess Matip will be ready, and it would surprise me, it really would, if Naby Keita's to start this game. But, you know, he's one of those guys who picks the ball up and likes to run at his man. And sometimes I mentioned about how Firmino and Salah drop in. Sometimes you don't need that. If you've got a player who's willing to put his foot on the ball and travel past the man, you can break the lines that way. And Keita could be instrumental over the next couple of months of the season for really helping us move the ball from midfield to attack, but do it in a slightly different way to players that we've got, more a la Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain from last season. It's just right now, for me, he just looks off the boil a little bit. He looks like he's lacking confidence, and I wonder why that's why, if that's why Naby Keita's been played over on that left-hand side more, because he maybe has a little bit more time, a little bit more space to work in, and if he makes an error, it's maybe not as crucial as if he makes one in the middle of the park, like he did, to be fair, right at the end against Brighton. So yeah, another one for us, Tom, please.
Yeah, there's an interesting one here from Christian W. Fabinho in centre-back, shift Hendo over and play Keita.
Yeah, so that's what I've just said, isn't it? I think, you know, the Fabinho to centre-back, Henderson and Keita. Yeah. But I think that is only really, Tom, if Matip's not fit, isn't it? I think, you know, he's been good, Fabinho, and he probably could be a centre-back. But I just feel like his influence on this side is so much greater when he's in the middle of the park, because Henderson can move the ball quickly when he wants to. When he's got options ahead of him, he'll move the ball quite quickly. What I think sometimes is he doesn't force the situation, Jordan Henderson, and people might say it's like too many backward passes and lateral passes and stuff like that. I think he's a little bit more safe with the ball than someone like a Fabinho. So Fabinho doesn't mind if those options aren't quite open, trying to force something to happen. And then you've got to rely on a good touch from one of these lads further up the field. Maybe Jordan's one area for improvement is to be a little bit braver in possession. But I think Fabinho offers us that, and I think that's why it's so important that Fabinho stays in centre midfield, because I think this midfield has performed better with a Fabinho, Wijnaldum, double pivot, as it were, in the centre of the park. And maybe Henderson doesn't get into our first team anymore. I do think Fabinho and Wijnaldum have been the better options for us this season, and the reason is Fabinho plays that one-touch, two-touch football, hits the ball direct, tries to take their players out of the game with his passing, and doesn't mind bombing on, knowing that he's got somebody to cover him as well. Have you got another one for me, mate?
Yeah, Ringu Bazaar says, I think we should give Camacho a start.
I'll be honest, listen, I completely disagree with that, and the reason that I disagree with that is I obviously went to the Wolves game, and I watched the full game back the next morning, full 90 minutes, and then I analysed Keanu Hoover's game, and did it for the Stats and Tactics show, and things that I'd thought were wrong with Keanu Hoover's game on that first viewing at the grounds, in the away section, weren't Keanu Hoover's fault. I don't believe. I think it was more down to Rafa Camacho's positioning. He is more of a winger, a right midfielder, I believe, than a right back, and I think his positioning showed that against Wolves. And I'd urge anyone to go back and watch that game and just see how advanced he was, and how Keanu Hoover kept getting left out in space here, and how Milner had to keep dropping in between the centre halves to cover for Rafa Camacho's position. Now, it's not to say that I think Camacho's a bad player. I just think that it might be a little bit too soon to utilise him as a right back. I mean, I haven't quite seen that he's as good a tackler as James Milner. I don't actually think that he's as good a crosser of the ball as James Milner, and I don't think he's as disciplined as James Milner either. Again, I don't mean to berate Rafa Camacho here. He's a talented player. Clearly, he's got bags of talent, but I just think he's not quite disciplined enough for what we need in that right-back berth. Although, all that being said, in a game against Crystal Palace, maybe we are expecting to have more of the ball, but then in that instance, I would worry about him tracking back and helping out, because there was too many times during that Wolves game where he didn't. He switched off. He jogged back in. Whereas I don't think you're getting that with James Milner. I don't think you get that with a Fabinho. I don't think you get that with a Trent Alexander-Arnold. If they are caught out of position, they'll kill themselves to get back in. And I just don't think that Camacho will do that. So there you go. That's my reasoning on it.
King Kenny says, I'm bricking it for this game. Fans acting like Palace are rollover.
Yeah, they're not at all. But equally, we're top of the table for a reason. They can pick up 3 points against us, of course. They can. Can they do it at Anfield? Probably. They've done it in the past. They're potentially a better side with more talented players than their league position shows, and they should be treated as such. Now, it's irrelevant, I believe, with how Liverpool fans feel going into a game. Completely irrelevant. It's what the players and the manager think going into a game that counts. We do this like, you say something, you touch wood. It doesn't matter. It's just a crock of shit, isn't it? Quite frankly, what the lads. I want the lads going into this game thinking we're better than them, we're going to beat them, but also wary of their strengths. But ultimately, this Liverpool side is good enough to beat Crystal Palace probably 9 times out of 10, maybe 8 times out of 10. And as such, we should be confident that Liverpool can get a result. Yeah, fair enough. Let's go one more.
Nicholas Noor says, would love to see Sturridge start up top and shift Salah to the right. We may need a technical player to break down a defensive Palace.
Maybe so. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I like the option of Sturridge when they're getting a little bit more tired, because he's not the fastest player anymore, is he? And to bring somebody into that game with his technical ability, with his finishing skills, is probably a good thing for me. One of the things that I thought about and spoke about, actually, I think it was on the build-up show with Tom and Paul and John yesterday. I think that should be out now, actually.
It was scheduled for this morning, so it should be.
Okay, cool. I think one of the things is, could you drop Firmino a little bit deeper, right? play him in a three-man midfield and put Naby Keita in there, where his defensive responsibilities aren't as much, and have him sort of, the way that Firmino runs back, maybe have Keita run forwards with the ball at his feet, and that actually would free up Salah to take Shaqiri's place on the right-hand side, and Firmino to go back in the number 9 position in that old school front three. That's something that I'd like to see Liverpool do, but I'm not sure about the dynamic of this midfield three. I think it works on paper, and I think if Keita's to come into the side, that's probably the way that I'd do it. And then, kind of what I've just been saying about Sturridge off the bench, then you've got the likes of Shaqiri and Sturridge off the bench if you need them with 30 minutes to play. I like that. Let me know your thoughts on that one in the comments section actually as well. Let's do one more, mate. Let's do one more. Milner is a machine and a utility player. He absolutely is, Joshua. Orem. Sel Moreno, get Tierney or Chilwell, Sisson Idol. Why not? I think Milner, Fabinho, double pivot would work with Camacho at right back, says Brighton. I mean, I've spoken about Camacho, so I won't talk about that again, but that double pivot of Milner and Fabinho interests me because we've not seen Milner, have we, in a two-man midfield in the same way that we've not really seen Keita in a two-man midfield. Now, Milner might have come in and spelled games at the end, but most of the time we've actually switched. We've been ahead and we've switched to a three-man midfield towards the end of the game when Milner's come in. And I don't know why that hasn't been tested. I don't know why James Milner hasn't been put in a two-man midfield yet, because to me, he's got all the attributes to make it work. You know, he can see a pass, he likes to move the ball quickly, he can tackle, he never stops running. So it surprises me. It's one of the things that has surprised me this season is why haven't we used James Milner in a two-man midfield? And I'd love to peck Klopp's head on this one and just ask him honestly why he thinks that. But yeah, maybe it's just giving opportunities to the likes of Fabinho and stuff. Anyway, that is the Starting 11 prediction show. Thank you all for joining me live. Thank you all for watching the video on demand. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe to the Redmen TV on YouTube, and I'll see you next time.